Hello, this is Troy A. Shadowing Tronics, taking part in the unofficial this year Art Soundoff Challenge. Already going through some technical problems trying to get things started up, so we'll see how this year goes. So today I want to talk a little bit about respect. Respect for people who came before you and people who for the characters you're working on. And there are other topics I could talk. I'm going to try to avoid certain aspects of this topic just because I know that Art Sign Off is supposed to be this fun discussion of your art day and on comic creation. So, I wanted to show respect to Rob Jersey. That's why, if like I've heard about this comic union that Image is starting up. If you want to know my thoughts about that, I've got an article coming up tonight, as you see this anyway, tonight on that topic. So that's about the whole thing about starting a union. Whatever I think about it overall is about trying to get respect. The kind of respect that Siegel and Schuster didn't get. So, but I get my thoughts on that over there. Here, I want to talk about two aspects of respect. One is I'm going to try to stay out of the internet drama, but we do have to talk about respecting characters that you don't own. But we'll do that. I'll save that so that way you can drop off when you want. Let's talk about respect just for the characters you're working on, whether you own them or not. And actually, it's all kind of weaves together. I get a little concerned when I hear a writer talking about how he or she is enjoying torturing the characters or putting the characters through the ringer. I can understand wanting to challenge your characters because you want to see how they overcome. Like, Rambo's not going to die at the end of the movie, but you want to see how all of these skills that he got over the course of his life, how he uses them, how those skills are challenged, how he overcomes those challenges. I've never wanted to say that a skilled character is not somebody you can write. You totally can. I've seen it done. You don't need to be this total nobody rookie fighting to become better at the end. Like, yeah, there's some good stories there, but you can't do a story with a seasoned veteran with great skills. The point is to see how those skills are challenged and how they overcome. So it's a matter of how do they handle it? How do they handle themselves? Getting to see all these skills that he's built over the years. That's why I like, the Optimus Prime's like, he built those skills over the years. So seeing him put those skills to action, put that wisdom into action, which kind of got ruined with the Matrix of Leadership, whatever. But getting to see him overcome and to see how, even maybe something that's those things did not prepare our hero for. So how do they overcome that? And you can do that with female characters too. And that's I'll come to another point. Another point is respect your characters enough to give them personalities. Whatever other reason you may have for I'm getting a little rambly. I'm sorry. Let me back up a bit. Because I'm not only rambling, I'm getting slightly off topic. When you're creating characters, you need to respect them. First off, you're basically writing somebody else's life story. This person may not actually exist. You've heard writers talk about how the characters basically wrote themselves when they were doing the story. That's because you respect the character enough to realize this is basically their life story. If these were real people, these are the adventures they'd have. These are your personalities. This is how their personalities affect events and how those events then affect them and their personality. It's all intertwined. I've never had a problem with an event story where as long as the characters are interesting, because the characters move the events along. Each of their personalities, how they interact with each other, how they react to a situation. Even if you're doing an event-driven story, the good characters will still push events along. good characters need interesting events to follow along. Most boring movie I've ever watched is one where a bunch of people are at a party and they're just talking about, like you would do at a party. Except these are not my family and friends. I don't give a about what they want, what their lives are, because I don't care about these people. So sitting there watching these completely boring people talking about the most boring parts of their lives, like, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about the story. You're not you're not someone I care about. So I'm not invested in the events of your life. You need to treat your characters like people. And when you're doing a long-term story, you have to factor in the characters that you're writing. A lot of the problems now with people who are taking over for other people's characters, they don't care about the characters. They have a story they want to write, and they'll shoehorn in any character any way they can, and then the characters don't come off right. And the fans of those characters look at it and they get annoyed. Because when you create a character, when you give them personalities, you put them through life events, you put them through struggles. Remember the Never-Ending Story? One of my favorite scene in that is when Atreyu is meeting with a childlike empress. And she's talking about how he needed to bring the Earthling child to him. He doesn't bring the Earthling child physically to the childlike empress. That happens after Sebastian becomes part of the story. But by watching Atreyu's adventures, you start watching Bastian getting invested in Atreyu's adventures. He may not be taking part in the story, but he's invested in it. He's becoming part of this world, which is what plays into the finale. And that's basically what the childlike empress is saying. She's saying, he was with you when you were in the swamp of sadness. He was with you when you dealt with a nothing. He was with you in fact, he's with you right now. Because Bastian was so invested in this story that first off, he's hiding in his school attic instead of going to class. And he's just following this story, following this adventure. This has become more important to him, especially considering how crappy his life is at that point. And also, there's also a nice part too. This line I don't know if anyone's ever caught. Maybe you have. When he says that when she says that not only was Bastian following along with the Treyu's story, but at the same time, someone was following his story. Us, the audience. We were invested in Bastian. Through Bastian, we are introduced to the world of Fantasia. We see Bastian connecting to the story, and we start connecting to the story. We start connecting from Bastian to Atreyu, and then also invested in how Bastian is getting drawn into the story, especially when we start seeing hints that Bastian is indeed the Earthling child that's needed to save Fantasia. So there's just just that scene where she's explaining all that is just why I love stories so much and why characters matter so much, but the events that the characters go through also matter. So going out there to torture your character is not the right thing to do. Going out there to challenge your character, to make them become better by the end of the story, or to show how he protects these other characters, how he rescues them, how she, if your hero's female, how she gets through events, and how they all come out the other side stronger at the result. And you need to respect those characters, and especially if those characters aren't yours, because remember, those characters became popular. They became strong not because of the name, not because of the abilities, but because the character Superman became a cultural icon that he did not because of Superman, not because of his powers. Supervillains have powers. What made Superman special and drew people to Superman was how he used those powers, how he believed in the goodness, in the general goodness of the human race, while acknowledging there are bad people. Seeing how Clark Kent interacts with the staff without their knowing he's Superman, and how they treat him versus how they treat Superman, and how he relates to them, how he connects with people. And it's the things that he does as Clark Kent, and it's the upbringing from his parents that makes Superman who he is. His powers make him what he is, but it's who he is as a character, as a person. And when you're making a character, you're basically making a person. And how he becomes what he is because of his life as Clark Kent, which is why I'm always against getting rid of the Clark Kent identity, which sadly they've done again. But it's respecting those characters, respecting who these characters are, what they were like. This is why people connected to them. This is why, the villains you love to hate. This is why Todd Phillips' Joker is not the Joker. This is why people are not relating to these alternate versions of characters, because they are so tied to those characters, regardless of what they look like or anything else. It's who the people are that they connected to. Now you can create new characters with all these new interests, and that I'll put it there. All these new personality types and interests and everything else that's out there. You can make new characters, and to say that you can't make those characters good, you've already failed. Because those Black Panther. You know how many years it took Black Panther to become popular? He was created in the 1960s. He showed up in a few cartoons. He didn't get his own movie until 2000s. Static, on the other hand, got his own cartoon in not even a decade. So you can't judge whether somehow a character is going to be popular, but you make a character popular by making good characters, putting them in adventures that people are interested in. And this goes for original characters as well. I'm always in favor of new characters and new stories. I still want to watch these old characters because they mattered. They meant something to me. They mattered to me. I was invested in their story. But I can be invested in new characters because these characters were new when I first was introduced to them, and I may have had other heroes beforehand. And so you can get invested in new stories without new characters and new stories, new adventures, and still be interested in the old characters. And when you're creating your own characters, you need to have faith in your characters and their story, that they'll be good, that they'll be interesting, that you can make them stand out on their own and not be derivative of X, but to be themselves. For all the flack Brie Larson gets, some of which she deserves, she made a comment once where she said that I am not the next Tom Cruise. I am myself. She was kind of snotty about it, but she had a point. She doesn't have to be the next Tom Cruise. She can be her own self, whatever you think of her own self, and I won't get into that. But that's the thing. When you're approaching a character, you need to have faith in that character to stand out on their own, not to be a replacement or an analog or anything else. The Samaritan is not an analog of Superman. That's not how Kurt Busiek approaches him. He has similar powers. He has a similar place in the Astro City universe that Superman has in the DC universe, but he's not supposed to be another Superman. He is his own character, his own personality. He has his own goals, his own drives. Some of them match Superman's because that's what makes a good superhero. And frankly, somebody with Superman's powers, you kind of want him to be the Boy Scout, because if they're a horrible person, if they're Homelander on the boys, you don't want that person having that much power. So when you're approaching a character, when you're creating a character, when you're telling their story, you come across it like you are writing a real person. They may not be, but this is how your audience will connect to them. To them, while they're watching the story, while they're reading the book, while they're listening to the audio drama, while they're watching the movie, whatever, however they're connecting to it, for that time, while that story is playing, they are real to your reader. And that's how you write them, as if, you know, you don't obviously go out and actually believe your fictional characters are real, but and you don't want them to believe, you know, there's really a Superman running around. But while you're in that world, while you're telling that, while they're reading or listening to that story, that's when they believe that a character is real, and that comes from respecting your character, their story. Gotcha. No, I didn't. No, I got it. And their legacy, and because your characters are essentially people. I hope somewhere in that rambling I made some kind of sense. If not, let me know. I'll be happy to try and clarify what I was saying and make more sense. Or I'll just ramble more. We'll see how that goes. But if you did find this interesting, I am a better writer than I am a talker, so you can check out my articles at bwspotlight.com. And if you want to find out more about what Art Soundoff is, and maybe you'd like to take part in it, check out artsoundoff.com. So we'll see you tomorrow for maybe something. Maybe I'll be a little less rambly. Weird thing is, I start thinking this stuff up in my head, and the moment I do, it's like I'm using up the way to say it right. So then when I'm go to talk about it later, it doesn't comes out more rambly and more distracted than it does when I was playing through it earlier in my head. So maybe I need to go back to start writing this out and just read off the script, because that's when I've done that in Art Soundoffs, I think I've come out a lot better, because like I said, I'm a better writer than I am a talker. There's a reason I don't do one of the reasons I don't do live streams. But I will try to work on that, and maybe we'll work on that tomorrow. And until then, I wish you all happy creating.